Scandinavian York. Danish Norwegian York is a term used by historians for the south of Northumbria during the period of the late 9th century and first half of the 10th century, when it was dominated by Norse warrior kings, in particular, used to refer to the city controlled by these kings. Norse monarchy controlled varying amounts of Northumbria from 875 to 954. However, the area was invaded and conquered for short periods by England between 927 and 954 before eventually being annexed into England in 954. It was closely associated with the much longer-lived Kingdom of Dublin throughout this period. History. York had been founded as the Roman legionary fortress of Eboracum and revived as the Anglo-Saxon trading port of Ea, for which it was first captured in November 866 by Evert the Boneless, leading a large army of Danish Vikings, called the Great Heathen Army by Anglo-Saxon chroniclers, which had landed in East Anglia and made their way north, aided by a supply of horses with which King Edmund of East Anglia bought them off, and by civil infighting between royal candidates in the Anglian Kingdom of Northumbria between the leaders of its two sub-kingdoms, Bernicia and Area. Declaring a truce, the rivals for the throne of Northumbria joined forces but failed to retake the city in March 867, and with their deaths Area came under Danish control as the Kingdom of Northumbria, and the Northumbrian royal court fled north to refuge in Bernicia. A Viking attempt against Mercia of the same season failed, and in 869 their efforts against Wessex were fruitless in the face of opposition from Kings Ethelred and Alfred the Great. The Archbishop Wulf here seems to have temporized and collaborated with the Norse, for he was expelled from York when a Northumbrian uprising in 872 was only temporarily successful. He was recalled and held his seat until his death. The Viking king Guthred was buried in York Minster, a signal that he and the archbishop had reached a lasting accommodation. All the Viking coinage appears to have emanated from the mint at York, a mark of the city's unique status in Northumbria as an economic magnet. York's importance as the seat of Northumbria was confirmed when the Scandinavian warlord Guthrum headed for East Anglia, while Halfdan Ragnarsson seized power in AD 875. While the Danish army was busy in Britain, the Isle of Man and Ireland, the Swedish army was occupied with defending the Danish and Swedish homelands where Halfdan's brothers were in control. Native Danish rulers who eventually made Jelling in Jutland the site of Gorm the Old's kingdom were in the East Anglian kingdom. The five burghs, jarldoms, were based upon the kingdom of Lindsey and were a sort of frontier between each kingdom. King Canute the Great would later reinstall a Norwegian dynasty of jarls in Northumbria, with a Danish dynasty of jarls in East Anglia. Northern England would continue to be a source of intrigue for the Norwegians until Harold III of Norway's death at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, just prior to the Battle of Hastings and the Norman conquest. The Old Norse place name Konungsgörða, King's Court, recorded in the late 14th century in relation to an area immediately outside the site of the Porta Principalis Sinistra, the west gatehouse of the Roman encampment, perpetuated today as King's Square, which nucleates the Ainsti, perhaps indicates a Viking royal palace site based on the remains of the east gate of the Roman fortress. New streets lined by regular building fronts for timber houses were added to an enlarging city between AD 900 and 935. Dates arrived at by tree ring chronology carried out on remaining posts preserved in anaerobic clay subsoil. The Viking kingdom was fully absorbed into England in 954. After the Kingdom of Northumbria was re-merged, the title King of Jorvik became redundant and was succeeded by the title Earl of York, created in 960. Loss of political independence did not cramp the region's economic success. By California 1000, the urban boom brought the city to a population total second only to that of London within Great Britain. Although some of the early Earls of York were Nordic like the Jorvik kings, they were succeeded by Normans after the Norman conquest. William the Conqueror ended the region's last vestiges of independence and established garrisoned castles in the city. The earldom of York was abolished by King Henry II. Aftermath. Between 1070 and 1085, there were occasional attempts by the Danish Vikings to recapture the Kingdom of Jorvik. However, these attempts did not materialize into the return of the kingdom. The title Duke of York, a title of nobility in British peerage, was created in 1341, but was merged with the crown when the fourth Duke became King Edward IV. Subsequently, the title of Duke of York has usually been given to the second son of the king or queen. Kings of Jorvik. Archaeological findings. From 1976 to 1981, the York Archaeological Trust conducted a 5-year excavation in and around the street of Coppergate in central York. This demonstrated that, in the 10th century, Jorvik's trading connections reached to the Byzantine Empire and beyond. A cap made of silk survives, and coins from Samarkand were familiar enough and respected enough for a counterfeit to have passed in trade. Both these items, as well as a large human coprolite known as the Lloyds Bank coprolite, were famously recovered in York a millennium later. Amber from the Baltic is often expected at a Viking site, and at Jorvik an impractical and presumably symbolic axe head of amber was found. A cowrie shell indicates contact with the Red Sea of the Persian Gulf. Christian and pagan objects have survived side by side, usually taken as a sign that Christians were not in positions of authority. After the excavation, the York Archaeological Trust took the decision to recreate the excavated part of Jorvik on the Coppergate site, and this is now the Jorvik Viking Centre.